Adam, let's move on to that porterhouse you were talking about. Let's move on to the steak. We've had our veggies, we've had the appetizer, we've had the salad. Let's get right into the steak.
Yeah, there was that new Genshin Impact character, right?
Yeah, that was the one that we're talking about. Genshin Impact character. Yeah, get excited, ladies and gentlemen. No, Adam, we are talking about the Steam Deck, the PC2, if you will, the sequel to the original console PC. So there are a ton of articles. There's a ton of information. I'm just going to go with Tom Marks at IGN. Kind of had a good overall article here. So I've cut a lot out. There's a lot to talk about. So Valve has now officially announced the Steam Deck, a handheld gaming PC arriving later this year. And I believe we talked about this a couple months ago. I think we did talk about this Steam getting into the handheld market.
We may have. I've totally forgotten on that.
Regardless. So Valve has officially announced the Steam Deck handheld gaming PC arriving later this year. The Steam Deck has a form factor similar to that of a slightly larger Nintendo Switch, but with the capabilities of a full gaming PC. It runs a modified version of Valve's Steam OS, complete with a new console-like interface for easy navigation of both the Steam store and your Steam library. But it also provides access to an unrestricted computer desktop where any third-party applications can be installed, including non-Steam games or launchers. In terms of hardware, the Steam Deck has a 7-inch 1280 by 800 resolution, 60 Hz LCD screen, a custom AMD APU featuring a 4-core 8-thread CPU paired with 8 RDNA2 compute units for the GPU, and 60 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM. Practically speaking, that makes it a substantial amount stronger than the Switch, allowing it to run modern games impressively well. As a point of reference, I, Tom Marks, was able to play Jedi Fallen Order on an in-development Steam Deck at high graphical settings with little to no issues. It could even suspend running games like a console, and Valve says the intent is really to give players access to their entire Steam library on the go. Speaking of selling, the Steam Deck will be available in 3 different models. Importantly, however, the only major difference between them will be storage size and speed, with their graphical capabilities otherwise identical. The base version will cost $399 and have a 64 gig storage, followed by a $529 model with 256 gigs, and finally a $649 version that has half a terabyte and an anti-glare etched glass screen treatment. The latter 2 Steam Decks will also have faster NVMe SSDs, and all 3 will allow you to install and play games off of micro SD card to expand storage capabilities further. Going to go into another article here. No, you know what? We're going to leave it there for now. Adam, did I miss anything? Is there anything you want to add before we jump in?
I mean, for the time being, I'll let you talk about the next article when we want to move on, because I mean, this is a pretty extensive conversation. But I mean, as it stands right now, I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. We're having Steam handheld. You know?
Yeah.
You're getting like, PC games on the road. That's a huge deal, no matter how you slice it.
So let's actually hold off on the second article and let's just do initial first reactions. What is your initial reaction or initial thoughts about the Steam Deck?
I love it, but I can't stomach the price tag. That's the biggest thing for me, right? So I mean, US it doesn't sound too bad, but when you turn to Canadian prices, it's pretty insane. So it's $499 Canadian for just the basic version, which is a 64 gigabyte eMMC, basically a flash SD, essentially. Mm-hmm. Then you go all the way up to $659 for the 250 gigs SSD, and then $819 for the 512 gigabyte. Now, here's an interesting comparison, because a lot of people are comparing the Steam Deck to being around like just a little bit stronger than a PS4 or an Xbox One. So the PS4 currently with a 1 terabyte hard drive is $379.99. So when you really think about it, you're getting a terabyte console for $380 Canadian, and then for $500 Canadian, you're getting a handheld with a 64 gigabyte drive.
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate though, and it's not like SD cards are not expensive to buy anymore. Like, it's not hard to upgrade this to a higher capacity.
Well, the ultimate question though is, what's the upgradability of this thing going to be? Because my brain goes, sure, I could get an SD card, but it's not going to give me the speed that an SSD is. And, and from what 100%. I've seen is that you can put SSDs into the cheap version, but it's not an end user replacement recommendation. Like, it's something you'd have to get done by a professional. Now, I would hold off and see what modders do with it, because I'm sure with unless it's like really taking this apart and soldering and shit, I think it should be doable for a lot of people. But then again, I haven't seen the insides of it yet, so who knows? It may be a lot harder than I think it is. But that's the big thing for me is like I can get a console that's almost the exact same level with 10 times the space for less money. Actually, the PS4 Pro is only $30 more expensive than the Steam Deck at its base model. Yeah. It's interesting on the price, which just goes to the question of how much do you value handhelds? How much do you value portability of playing games that you couldn't get on the Nintendo Switch, for example? Because that's really its competition. It's the Switch.
Yeah, I think my initial reaction is like, I am super excited about the possibilities that this thing presents, but I have a lot of questions and I'm hesitant to be. This is not something, and I mean, I'm probably not the target audience. I'm not a PC gamer, but I am not 100% sold on this yet. Like, I think it's a cool concept. I think if it works, I'm rooting for this, but I am skeptical. My initial thought is, yeah, it is expensive, and like, it's playing games like Jedi Fallen Order and stuff, which is great that it can play it so well. But how long can it play those, major AAA games before it starts chugging? Like, it's showing you what last gen games look like. It's not showing you what, current gen games. So when you start getting 1 year, 2 years into this, like, is it going to be able to hold up and perform those AAA games? Or is this something that you're going to use to play your indie games and your back catalog, which once again is great, but it's one of those questions like, is it worth the money? And that, so I'm skeptical in that sense. And once again, I'm rooting for it, but I have some concerns and some trepidation.
Yeah, I'm very flabbergasted as to how so many people seem to be willing to throw money at it, to which I say, guys, holy shit. Like, unless you have money to burn, stop doing that.
Yeah. And if that's the case, if you're one of those people, let us know. We can start a Patreon. We'll take your money.
Please donate some of that money to me too, because Lord knows I could use one. I can buy a Steam Deck, give you a full review of it on this channel. I can do that stuff.
Yeah, Steam or Val, if you're listening, send it over. We'll give you a review as well.
Like, I just, my brain can't comprehend wanting to spend $800 so I can play XCOM, Witcher
Portal
3 on a handheld. I can't understand it. When I just paid less, like $200 less than that for this PS5 that is 5 times stronger than this thing. My brain just does not work with that. I understand the hype. I know there's the PC Master Race audience that likes to flaunt their dicks everywhere.
But here's the thing.
Let
me get in right there at that point. This is one of the things that people always talk about with, PC is that, you get so much better like experience. You're getting stronger. You're getting faster, better graphics, stronger loads, it plays better. You're now losing that argument with the handheld aspect, right?
Yeah, it's now literally just going to downgrade everything just to make it work.
It's going to downgrade to the level of PS4, which, PC Master Race was always like, you guys like, playing your 1080p HDR, you guys are living in the past.
I think it's 1280 by 800 is like the max settings they're doing for most of these. So
yeah, and that's like, I know that it's a handheld, so you are taking that hit, but like, you're not getting that PC Master Race glory that
I don't think you're going to see 120 frames games on this thing. No, you're gonna be lucky if most of them see 60.
Well, it's running a 60 hertz screen, so like, you're not going to get like a huge speed there. The other thing though is that this raises the question for me. Like, once again, I tried the whole gaming thing, but like, there's a lot of compatibility issues, and like, the question is, are you going to have these game developers now optimize a PC game so that it runs on the handheld and on those specs as well? So like, who's going to handle that in terms of compatibility and making it work? Like, unless it's streaming it directly from Steam as a Steam launcher, and like, it doesn't have to worry about drivers and all that crap. Like,
I know there's going to be a lot of emulation work on the side of it too, because I mean, the amount of things that this thing is capable of, you can install Windows on this bloody thing if you want. So that's what I mean too, is like, I would love to sit back and watch for the next 12 months after this thing gets put into the hands of people what modders can do with this thing. That's the intrigue to me, because like, the question, like, a lot of people are saying, well, what can we play on it? The list of things that you could potentially play on this thing is insane.
Theoretically, could you play like PlayStation Now or Xbox Game Pass? Do you know?
That I do not know, but people have said straight up, like, this is the list that I have seen. So this is all. So 56,000 plus Steam games. So their plan is to get basically all of their Steam games running on it at launch. Thousands of games from other launchers like Origin, Uplay, Good Old Games, Epic Games Store, all that. 400 plus thousand games on itch.io, 100 plus thousand indie games on GameJolt, thousands upon hundreds of thousands of other games on other websites, because if you can just put a browser in there, no problem playing that. That includes Flash games, Google Play games from like Android devices and stuff, DOS games, PS2, Wii U, Nintendo. Like, well, that's when you get into all the emulation stuff. You can have a literal, like, let's say the default model, because 64 gigs is quite a lot when we're talking old school games. You can literally, for $500, have every Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, N64, PlayStation. Like, you could have like massive libraries of old school games at your fingertips, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I mean at that point, if you're looking at this as like just a general gaming system, like maybe it is appealing.
I mean, $500 for a handheld emulation station is pretty crazy. It's still a high price tag, but to say that you could play like Final Fantasy X and then flip over to Super Mario Brothers 3 and then flip to Sonic the Hedgehog like 3 and then move on to Killer Instinct and like go back and like just like that at the drop of a hat, like that's a really intriguing thing. In the same way that like you see consoles like the Retron 5, which is like $400 for a console that has 5 cartridge slots in its machine that you can play different games on. So and now you're getting that in a much more not the best looking handheld I've ever seen. It looks like a 2021 Game Gear, but
you know what it reminds me of? And I mean, I know I'm not 100% accurate, but for me when I looked at it, I'm like, this looks like like the Game Gear and like the Wii U like combined, and neither of those were like, oh, that's fantastic.
I mean, again, you know, you're getting, if you can play games like Fallen Order as a handheld, I mean, you kind of take what you can get at that point, because
100%.
If like, somebody told you 2 months ago that you would be able to have the chance to buy something that could play like PS4 like level like PC games on your handheld, and people will be like, get the fuck out of here, that's not happening. Like, it's gonna be some dipshit company that's gonna come out with like this weird emulation thing that they've come out with. It's gonna be like $1,000 and no one's gonna buy it. It's gonna be some weird Kickstarter project, and then Valve is the one that comes out with it.
Yeah,
it's an insane proposition when you think about it, and now that we're seeing it in person, it's like we're both in agreement here. The idea as it stands looks like it has the highest ceiling I think I've ever seen in gaming ever. But has also a massive, massive floor that it could fall through.
This thing is either going to be the next big thing, or it is going to crash. And
this is either going to change. Well, actually, it'll probably change the industry no matter what happens. It's just a matter of if it'll be for the good or for the worst.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this out here. If you're listening to this, like, one question I just want to throw, and I'm not the person to know about this, so don't come at me, but just like let me know, like, why would I get this over like a gaming laptop? And I know everyone's always like, gaming laptops suck, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you can have the same sort of features with a gaming laptop. And, you know, people say, oh, it's the battery life. But this thing, you know, advertises a 2 to 8 hour battery life, which is not super fantastic. And if you're running a game, is pretty much in line with what a gaming laptop can do.
I'm going to curiously go on Best Buy right now here in Canada and see what like $800 can get you for a gaming laptop. I'm very curious right now to see what I can pull off with that.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you do want to have that ability that you can play powerful games, why not spend the extra money and go for a gaming laptop? So, anyways, the one thing I'm going to bring up here, and the concern I have is like, this looks great, but we've heard awesome things come out of Valve before that have kind of fallen flat. So like, particularly, like, do you think that this is going to be like the next Steambox? Because I remember when Steambox was coming out, people were pumped, people were excited, and then that kind of fell flat. And I know this one is being made by Valve, which is a huge difference from what the Steambox was, because I don't think Valve even made a version. It was just kind of like, we're going to brand it. Like, we're going to get everyone else to make it. We're going to get, yeah. So the reason why I ask is just because this is coming from Dave James at PC Gamer. More companies making Steam Decks. Valve wants Steam Deck to be the starting point for a whole new handheld PC ecosystem. That means he hopes that other PC manufacturers are going to get on board the Deck train and release their own versions of the handheld PC, likely hoping they're running the bespoke mobile version of the Steam OS Valve has created for it. And this to me is a red flag. Like, the fact that Valve and you know, the fact that they're trying to say like, hey, we want other people to make this, like that's a warning sign for me. Like, no, you don't want to do that, because that brings me right back to Steambox territory. And then you're just going to have different manufacturers with different specifications, and now you're going to have a system where game developers are going to have to kind of, you know, make sure that it works and adapt and has like is compatible with a whole bunch of different systems. And to me, that's a bad idea. What do you think, Adam? Is this like, what do you think the chances of this being the next Steambox? And do you think it's a good idea to kind of encourage other PC manufacturers to get into this handheld market?
So before I answer that, I'll quickly just pop up with the Best Buy thing. So I found, without counting open boxes or refurbished laptops,
that's fair.
$80, like $6 or $70 more. Sorry, you get a laptop i5 9300H core, 1 terabyte hard drive, 8 gigabytes of RAM with a GTX 1650. Not bad. And I mean, for another $100, you can, or even less than $100, you can put an SSD in there. So realistically, you're getting a pretty good system for a little bit more than the Steam Deck that's 512 gigabytes. So it really is just going to come down to how much you value the portability with the price. Like, that's going to be the biggest factor in it.
I'm not trying to like dissuade or trying to say like this is the same thing, but if you're listening, like, let me know.
I'm more telling everybody to kind of just take a step back, because you should probably wait and see what people can do with it first to see if you can maybe get a better deal. Because let's say hypothetically, you can easily put in an SSD yourself, like as long as you have some shred of like knowledge about PC parts. You can get the $500 model and put in a terabyte NVMe SSD for only $150 more. Because the SSD that's in my computer right now costs me $150. So for about the price of the 250 gig console, if I could put in a 1 terabyte on my own, that's not a bad deal. So that's why I would say, like, just take a step back. But to answer your question about, actually, can you quickly re-ask the question, just because so I don't like say the wrong words here?
Yeah, so we were just talking about the idea. I was talking about how Valve wants.
Sorry, you're talking about the Steambox thing. See, it just took a second to come back.
Other manufacturers, like, should they be encouraging other manufacturers to get into the handheld PC, the PC2 market?
See, this is the problem with my brain. If I ramble off for more than 2 minutes, I forget for about 10 seconds until brain catches right back and be like, oh yeah, that's where we were. I don't know if this is the same situation as the Steambox, because Valve in that case really didn't want to put any effort into making one themselves. Based on the fact that how fast it's sold out, the Steam Deck, I could see them really pushing to keep doing this. So perhaps them saying we would love more people to do it is more them saying, hey, we're challenging the industry to do better than us, so that way we can make something even bigger. That might be an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, like I said, I don't get the same flags from the Steambox as I do with this. Like, this is more like, okay, this is an anomaly. This is something that hasn't been done. Because, I mean, a PC box really isn't any different than just having a laptop and putting it up to a TV, you know? So it's not the craziest thing to go up to. But now a PC handheld is a completely different story, because we're basically talking like a powerful tablet. And a tablet certainly isn't going to be able to do what this thing does. So
no, not at all.
I see where you're getting at. I don't know if the situation is close to being the same, unless like Valve just straight up takes themselves out of the market again. But given how fast and how major the buzz has been for that, like, it seems to me, and you can maybe feel a little bit differently than I do, but because of what's gone with the Alex VR game and them putting their it feels like they're dipping back into the industry instead of just having a storefront. So I wonder if like this is actually them taking a real stab at getting back in the thick of things again, which means they would have a lot more focus in it, which means if they said to somebody, hey, we'd be happy if you guys try to do this too, I don't think it's necessarily a, hey, can you take this off our hands? I think that this is, hey, we see a market out there. Competition is going to make this bigger, because that means people will find ways to make parts cheaper. They'll make ways to find better innovation so that we can make this even better for this thing and actually turn handheld gaming into this much bigger market, kind of similar to what Japan does with their mobile market.
Yeah,
I wonder sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I think Steam sees a very interesting potential maybe with a mobile market, just not necessarily with cell phones, because that's already basically taken away from you with Google and Apple.
Oh yeah, I think that market's pretty much covered at this point.
So now they're maybe trying to cut their own market, because Switch really is the only competitor in that market. And no offense to Nintendo, but Nintendo Switch is Nintendo games and a handheld, or sorry, not a handheld, a handful of indie games and a couple of AAA games that barely make it work on there. So
Adam, don't give away the show. That's the next question. Yeah, no, for me, I think it's just I worry about the optimization of having several different systems with different specifications and different things to work on, and just are the developers going to put that much effort into it?
I mean,
Especially
if we can
because
even
they're
find
not
a way to have a cheaper version of it, it's an up for us. Like, it's a big plus
That's
for us
true.
if we can find ways around that too.
That's true. It's just like it's going to be a lot of work for developers at no additional return, because like if you buy it once on Steam, you have access on the Steam Deck. But Adam, you kind of alluded to it. How much is Nintendo shitting its pants right now?
Here's the thing, and I'll probably on my own channel at some point do a big deep dive, and that's a major part of it too. I don't think Nintendo gives a shit, to be honest.
No?
I don't think that makes a difference to Nintendo, because Nintendo has their core that just doesn't seem to want to leave.
But should Nintendo care? Let me ask you that. Should Nintendo care?
Should they? Maybe. I wouldn't say an automatic yes, because I think most of the games that are going to be a big seller for the Steam Deck aren't going to be on Nintendo consoles anyway. So unless they decide to make a foray into having a much stronger console that can handle those games, I don't know if it necessarily makes them worry, because I think that at least at this point, maybe 5 years down the line it's different, but I see no evidence to show that Nintendo is still not going to do exactly what they do, which is sell a shit ton of units and people spend the next 24 months waiting for the next big game.
Yeah, I mean, I keep alluding to this, but I think Nintendo is worried about this, and I think the Switch was in a very neat market in that they were the only ones that did portable gaming, and I think a lot of people got the Switch as like sort of their indie machine. That's where they got their indies, so they can play them on the go. And every once in a while, Nintendo sprinkled one of their big, AAA tentpole games. But those tentpole games are getting fewer and fewer apart, and they're not as like Skyward Sword. When did that come out? Like, I think it came out this week. And like, I haven't heard anything about it. I think it came out last Friday. And have you heard anything about this?
Nope.
So, like, my thought is that, the Nintendo Switch, when did this come out?
I mean, I don't know if it tells you that Nintendo is in trouble so much as I think it's just a lot of people maybe don't care too much about a port.
But that's what I'm saying. But what we're seeing primarily now on the Switch is ports, and I can confirm Skyward Sword is now on Switch. But like, most of what we're seeing from Nintendo is ports, and it is reskins of their old games or something like that. And so if they're not making compelling first party games anymore, and the indies can be played on the Steam machine, I mean, yeah, they've already sold some consoles and stuff, but like, I feel like the Steam machine is going to start coming for Nintendo's lunch, and that they're going to see fewer and fewer games. And those indies who put a lot of time and effort into the Switch are going to start going to the Steam machine.
I mean, they could probably do both.
They could, yeah. I for me, like, I think Nintendo is starting to lose the niche market that it had. Like, it had a sweet little spot for itself that no one else was playing it, and I think someone has come in that's bigger and better. This is really the Super Nintendo Switch Pro that we were always hoping for.
I think that's why a lot of people might be overanalyzing this, because they're so mad about the Switch OLED being the Switch Pro that we were told about for 6 months. I think a lot of people are just in fuck Nintendo. Like, and believe me, I'd love to be on the fuck Nintendo train. It's my favorite train to be on.
I thought you've got a lot of those that you like to be on. Ubisoft, EA.
Well, yeah, but we've
Nintendo.
kind of you finished Cyberpunk, so I can't really make fun of Cyberpunk nearly as much anymore. So Nintendo's kind of taken the brunt of it now.
Yeah,
but like, I don't necessarily know if just because Nintendo's in a weird place right now that means that Steam's going to come in and swoop it up. And the reason that I think that is because, well, Nintendo's been we've had essentially better handheld consoles for a while now, in both the PSP and the Vita, and they've done very poorly in comparison to Nintendo. I wonder if the Steam Deck maybe just pushes Nintendo to start trying a little bit again and then just take it over like they usually do.
And that's something I definitely would hope for. Like, I'd like to see Nintendo come back and actually have to like be hungry and fight a little bit for our money and our attention.
Yeah, but if the question is, if you're asking me if Nintendo's going to sweat a little bit, I don't think they do. I don't think they do unless this fight keeps going a couple of years into the Steam Deck and hasn't subsided. If at that point we're still talking about the Steam Deck and is doing really well, and these other companies are making Steam Decks and they're doing pretty well, that's when you start worrying. But as of right now, I don't think Nintendo is shitting their pants. I don't even think they're even feeling the urge to take a tinkle. I don't think they care at this point. Because again, people seem to forget Japan lives in a very isolated bubble when it comes to their industries. So almost they don't usually pay too much attention outside of it until it's inescapable. Mm-hmm. I don't think right now there might even be people within the company that don't even know it exists at this point. Like that's a potential.
That's the case.
So
I doubt that's the case.
You'd be surprised. Japan really kind of doesn't pay attention to a lot of stuff that comes out of the West in some places. So
yeah,
but I mean, I don't think they're worried about it yet. I think should they be? I think they could be. I think there's enough there with the buzz that the Steam Deck is getting, and I think the potential of what it could do could be very interesting. Can you imagine if modders are able to figure out how to get some Switch games on that thing? The shitstorm that would cause?
Yeah, I look at this and I just
is this my chance to get 3 houses?
Maybe. I honestly see this as I could just see the Nintendo's legal department just
what can
filing
they do?
Their pencils.
They can't do anything with Valve. Like, it's not Valve's
No, they
problem.
can't go for Valve. They can't go for Valve, but
like they can't go to anybody, really. What are they going to do? Sue a modder that they can't find?
That's the thing. I don't know.
It's not a company.
Fair enough. Yeah.
What are they going to sue? Sue Nintendo Killer H025_55 suck my dick 66? No.
Yeah.
They can't.
Exactly. We didn't have this on the doc, but I was just thinking about it. Do you think if we see the success of, the Steam Deck, do you think that this is going to lead maybe Sony into reviving the PS Vita, PSP handheld? What do you think the chances are of that?
10%.
Yeah.
If anything, they mean some of their games are already on Steam, so what's the point? They could just put more games on Steam.
Yeah,
I think they've burned themselves enough with 2. I don't think they want to try a third one.
Well, the first one was a success. Like the PSP was a success.
But they're still going to remember it as not making a dent. And honestly, the PSP sold much better in its later years because of its modding capabilities too, whereas the Vita didn't.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think, I'm of the mindset that I'd love to see PlayStation come out with another handheld, but I feel we
were just talking about them taking their streaming stuff to another company. Why would they put more money into a handheld after like the last one failing so bad? Like it feels like their focus now is just on the games they're producing. So it feels like a weird direction for them to go in, even if the Steam Deck performs really, really well. Because in that aspect, you're thinking, okay, somehow somebody broke into the thing that Nintendo has owned forever. Why the hell would we try now to be a third option?
Yeah, I think with the success that we've seen with the Switch for the past few years, that at this point Sony would already be kind of hinting, or we'd hear rumors of a new handheld market.
The only way I could see it working is if they have like some cheap $250 like tablet like thing that you can just stream PlayStation games on. That's probably the best option you could look for of a PlayStation branded handheld. You would not see like a PS4 handheld level thing like we are with the Steam Deck. No chance.
Here's what happens. Valve is trying to get other manufacturers to make Steam Decks. Sony comes out with the PlayStation Deck. Play your Valve games and get PlayStation exclusives.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
It's not going to happen, but yeah, I can wish as a fanboy. Adam, that's anything on your end that we haven't talked about yet with the Steam Deck that you want to discuss?
I really just want people to temper their expectations. I know, like I said earlier, the buzz is really strong because everybody's really mad at Nintendo right now because the Switch has been underwhelming. Everybody is it's the PC master race thing again because now they're like, oh, now we're in a market that even you console boys don't really have. So there's all that. But beyond that, it's the consumer part. Guys, I get it. This is a really cool thing, but think about the amount of money you're spending on even the base model, which gives you no space. If you want to play anything outside of like really, really small indie games, you're doing yourself a real disservice doing this.
Yeah, I agree.
Then if you go up to the big, like the 512 SSD, that's a lot of money. No matter how you slice it, like to me, $800 Canadian is a shit ton of money. That is a lot of money.
Yeah,
I don't value it enough to go at that point, especially when this thing is in between the Xbox One S and the PS4 in terms
And
of
we
power.
haven't seen it yet. Like we haven't seen it. We haven't played it. We haven't heard reviews yet. Like
Yeah,
if
we're
this
talking
comes
about
out
buzz
and,
at this point too. Yeah.
yeah, this is just speculation. Like if it comes out and everyone's like, this is the next greatest thing, sure, whatever. But like it'll be there 6 months after it releases. This is not the only iteration. So
It's just,
I'm
again,
with you.
keep in
Like,
mind, like, this thing is about half as powerful as a Series S, and it's going to be coming at a hell of a lot higher price tag. So, again, how much do you value portability? That's the big question.
No, I completely agree with you. I'm of the mind that, yeah, be excited for this, but, you know, this is a time that might be worthwhile just to wait and see. Like, this is a whole new foray. This is not like it, you know, we could say the same thing when like PS5 and Xbox Series X and S came out, but like those have track records. We know what those are. This is a whole new thing, a whole new foray, and there is justification for being cautious and to kind of wait and see where this lands. So, but given how all the excitement, we're totally gonna get roasted on this online for our opinions.
Well, yeah, because we're just a bunch of dumb console gamers.
Yeah, console peasants. So. But ladies and gentlemen, what is your excitement for the Steam Deck? Did you order one? Are you kind of excited for one? Or are you kind of with us and tempering your expectations? What do you think? How is the Steam Deck going to be remembered? Let us know in the comments. Once again, reach out to us on social. Let us know your thoughts. We're eager to see what you think. If you want to send us an email with your thoughts too, we'll happily read them on the next episode.